Let's make a World War II Red Cross Hospital and Recreation uniform. Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin. I teach old-fashioned sewing skills on my channel, and we're going to start somewhat of a new series. It's not going to be every single month, but I've been doing a lot of research into Red Cross simply because 1940s, I have not found my niche yet. I'm very good with what I do in the 19th century as far as living history goes and actually acting out the part. I have a hard time with 20th century, especially the 1940s, because it's so modern. You're basically regulated to being either a pretty picture prop, where you take photos of people, or you're immediately just dumped into a victory garden and you just got to do victory garden stuff. Seeing that concept, I want to show another part of 1940s life, but I also really hate doing military, and I really do not want to do anything with the military. I'm okay with supporting the military for 1940s, I just don't want to be in it. So I am not a WWII Women's Army Corps person whatsoever. No thank you. So Red Cross is civilian women who were supporting the war effort through their many skills. And so we're going to work through a series of making all of, at least the indoor uniforms for each of the corps, or at least most of the corps. And so that's what we're going to start on today. We're going to start off with probably the most famous of the Red Cross Corps, which would be Hospital and Recreation, also sometimes known today as the Gray Ladies. They worked in the hospital setting, but they didn't do anything medical. So that's what we're going to work. My 10-12 years ago, I don't remember when, I made a Gray Lady service dress. It's very poorly made. And I drafted it myself, which I'm actually really impressed that I did that. It's not great on the inside, and it doesn't fit because I had a 24-inch waist when I made this in college, and because it's not very fitted, I can still fit it in the waist. It's here that gaps and is not appropriate to wear in public. So I'm going to make myself a new one. But that is that. I have myself some gray cotton fabric. For the pattern, I am using a Mrs. Depew pattern, which is the 1940s or her 1940s nurses pattern. I bought it because it looked right. And then I did more research and realized that her pattern is an original 1940s nurses pattern. It dates to post-war. It is also not the approved Red Cross pattern. The pattern she has is a gored skirt with a separate top that is with an attached waistband, whereas the official Red Cross pattern is a fully gored princess line gown. So what I did is I just took the skirt pieces and taped them to the bodice pieces and just cut up the bodice to make them, seamlessly fit together. And so I think what I have now is very close to the original pattern. That's what we're going to be using today. I am going to make this a short-sleeved one, so the uniform corps could have short or long sleeves. Just for what I do, and it's because I live in Texas, most of what I'm going to want is a short-sleeved dress. So we're going to go ahead and make the short sleeves. If I have extra fabric, I may go ahead and cut the long sleeves, and then I can sew them up and then change out the sleeves if I really wanted to. So let's go ahead and get cutting on this and see what we can come up with. Short sleeve and long sleeve. I did have enough fabric. You can see here, this is the bodice, this is the skirt, and I just taped them together, and it seems like it's gonna work, because back when I used to have access to originals when I worked at the museum, I didn't think to pattern anything, which was stupid. Alright, it is a princess seam dress, and that means that the sewing amount is less than, if you had a bodice and a skirt. You just had to sew it all at once, which is really nice. So we are going to use the 1907 Singer for this, which is my great-grandmother's machine. And then on a couple of the originals I looked at, the inside seams were definitely filled. So we're going to go ahead and fill all of these seams just to finish them out. Now I'm going to sew up the front facing, which the front was one piece, I just folded it over, and that ends up being the facing. And now with that, so we just sew the shoulders which I will also fill. Alright, at this point I'm going to just streamline all of the stuff that needs to be in gray so I can change the thread to white, do all my white stuff, and not have to keep switching the threads back and forth, because that just seems more time efficient to me. So I'm working on sleeves right now. I'm going to pause on the long sleeves only because they need like a tab thing, and I don't have the mental capacity to deal with that tonight, so I will deal with that later. Part of the reason we're doing this today is because I need to wear this tomorrow, and I don't have very much time, so I do not have mental capacity to deal with that. We will deal with that later. So that's a sleeve that has been filled. There's one breast pocket, and then there are 2 skirt pockets. And we're going to go ahead and sew the little cap part, which the pattern didn't come with this. And I looked at Mrs. Depew's nurse's hat pattern, and it did not look right compared to the originals. I'm about 75% sure I took this from an original, like I actually traced it. Not 100% sure, but I'm about 75% sure, and it does look better compared to a lot of the patterns I'm seeing, so I'm going to use this. So I accidentally hemmed the whole thing without filming it, but the hem is done, so that was the next step. Now I'm going to sew these sleeves that we prepped into the arm's eyes. They're not hemmed yet because it requires a white cuff, but I am going to just stitch in the sleeve. The sleeve fits perfectly, there's no need for gathering, which is fantastic because again, I want these to be somewhat interchangeable with the long ones. Do the small one first. Alright, this is the cuffs for the short sleeves. And while we're here, let's go ahead and sew some epaulets. And this is the cap, or the first cap. So we're actually going to make 2 caps, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but early on in the war you could wear the cap part where you could wear a veil. I like the veil look, but that was very much discontinued by 42. So I'm going to make both because I like the veil option. Because we're doing late war for this event, we're going to focus on this other cap for right now. We'll do the veil when we come back, which will still be in the same video. But when I get to the long sleeves, I'll do the veil then too. Sewing on the service patch. Now my old Red Cross uniform had the volunteer patch, which I now know is a post-World War II patch. It was changed from service to volunteer. So what I have on there is incorrect for what I'm doing. Also, I'm looking at some originals. I very clearly see some machine stitch buttonholes, which makes me very happy. I can do that, but first we're going to sew on this collar. And I am going to have to switch it back to gray. I need to finish out the belt. And then I'm noticing on at least one of the gray lady dresses that I was seeing really close up, there's a top stitch on the very edge of the front all the way up to the collar on both sides. So I am going to do that. The one note about the collar, I'm only seeing it on gray lady dresses. I'm not seeing it on the other cores, but it seems like there is a gray collar underneath the white collar on at least 3 of the ones I'm seeing, but not on the pattern. I'm not seeing it at all on the original pattern, and I'm not seeing it on any of the other cores. At least I looked at production core dresses for what it's worth, because those are the 2 I'm going to start with. So those are the 2 that I have all pulled up on my computer, and they don't have a second collar underneath. So I don't have a second collar underneath. I don't know if that's right or not. It's just weirding me out that all 3 originals that I am seeing have the second collar. Alright, the belts that I'm seeing really close up have basically 2 seams, and I did 2 seams there. I haven't done this side yet. But one at the very edge and then one a little bit over. And I guess it's a really finished, tailored look, so I'm doing that. And as we discussed before, do a small little top stitch along the front of the gown. And I am using the word gown. It's not a gown, it is a uniform. But it's dressed like an appearance, so I've been calling it a gown, even though it's not. Alright, for video time's sake, I am not going to film buttonholes. I'm going to get those done. I will be done with this for tonight then. I will wear it tomorrow. We'll reconvene sometime after the event to finish the long sleeves and the veil. So this is the veil portion. And I dyed it. It's just cotton voile that I dyed gray. Rit dye, because that's the gray that I had for cotton. And yes, so technically it's supposed to be chiffon. Although even the Red Cross guidelines do say it can also be georgette or lawn or voile. So I'm using voile because that's what I already had. And there are so many different ways to make the veils. I've seen some with really huge hems, at least 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. I have seen the Red Cross guidelines say 1 inch hem when finished, which means like an inch, like a 1/2 inch turnover or 1/4 inch turnover, and then the inch. I've seen a lot of them that are just whipped on the edges. This is what I'm going with. I went back and forth whether I should hand or machine do it. I'm going to do it by machine. I can't tell the detail on the ones that I've seen. They've all been Production Corp veils, and so all the originals. And so it's so dark I can't really get to how it was sewn. So we're gonna go by machine, and if it's not right, I'll take it out and do it by hand. That's fine. And so I have not seen a veil to actually measure it. I found a couple online, and they're all between 22 and 25 inches in width. So that's what I cut this as. I ended up cutting it to be about 25 inches square. Alright, we're going to work on long sleeves. So I just sewed them together, did the darts, did everything that the pattern said. Now for the cuffs, this is the fun part because the pattern doesn't have what the Red Cross did. So I had to draft my own. I'm looking at a picture, which is not my favorite thing to do. When it comes to like little tiny things like this, like I can drape a whole bodice, no problem. But these little sleeve things on the sleeve shape I'm not used to working on, and doing things that I don't understand is just not as much fun. But I figured it out. Okay, the other side of the cuff has a tab that comes to a point, so it matches, the belt. Stitching this on. Alright, this other side is going to be very hard to see on the camera, but I'm going to do sew down the point, and it's going to be 2 seams like we have been doing with the belt and that sort of thing, one that's real close to the edge and one that's a little bit over. And the last part of the gray is we are going to sew on a gray cuff, because there is a gray cuff underneath the white one, which we're going to sew in a moment. Most of the white cuffs I've seen have been removable, which makes a lot of sense when you think about laundry practices. It actually makes me wonder if the, oh, I sewed that on the bottom. Oops. Oh, I didn't. Okay, cool. I thought I did. It makes me wonder if the short sleeves also should have been with a removable cuff. I don't recall, except for the fact that cuffs do tend to get a little bit dirtier than, you know, up on the arm, but still. Alright, aside from snaps, sewing the veil to the top part is going to be the last bit. And so we kind of talked about the veil in length and width and all that. So part of it, of one corner gets folded down, this part goes over the head, and it's just so your head is doubly covered. Alright, here it is. So I think it turned out great. I'm really happy with it. The event was a work day. There's two of us ladies. We didn't do a whole lot of the work necessarily. We talked about women's participation in World War II events, that sort of thing. Did some sewing, just basic stuff. I wasn't all dressed out because I wanted to and not because I had to, because it's fun. And I really need an excuse to get this done. I, again, had a dress that was basically the same thing. And I loved dressing up like that, and it's one of my husband's favorite time periods, so it's high time it got redone into a dress that would actually fit me in my changing body. So it's done, and it looks fantastic. This one fits me way better than the other one ever did. It's also a better color, because the other one was a little bit more, it was a little too blue-gray. It was gray, and it wouldn't, like if you put it next to a blue-gray, no one would say it was blue-gray, but it was a little too blue. So this is a much more neutral gray that looks way on par with the originals. So much, much better. Sleeves may be a little long on me, but again, I have short arms, so I probably should have expected that. I did cut down 2 inches of the long sleeves, which I have right here. And again, these are just if I want to put them on. I will take these sleeves out. Of course, this isn't going to be perfect, but it'll show you what the dress would look like. So this is what it would kind of look like with, you know, less crazy arm size with the long sleeves. So that's the long sleeve version. Kind of. I'm sure it looks really odd, but yeah, that's it. Again, the lady would have chosen whether she wanted a long sleeve or a short sleeve uniform. I just don't want to have so many outfits in my wardrobe, and with a very simple change of just doing one seam, I can change out the look, and so for me, this is going to work much better than having 2 outfits. But yeah, I did eventually found one of these core, one of the gray lady dresses without the white collar, and yes, there is a gray collar underneath. I'm not sure how I would add that in at this point. So it may just have to stay as is, unfortunately. But other than that, that's the only thing I have found that is about this particular outfit. Cap looks really nice. Of course, I do have the veil, and it's me, so of course I prefer the veil. So this is what it looks like. So there's a little triangle part that goes above the head as well. And I didn't really do my 1940s hair. Usually I do 2 braids and I cross them, and I've done that hairstyle before on the channel. And that's my usual go-to for 30s and 40s because I have long hair. I'm always a veil person. Anything that has to do with the veil, I'm in it for the veil. Love veils. They're absolutely fantastic. I love them in any century. I don't think I've come across a veil I didn't like. And there's some weird 1920s looking wedding veils, but even then, the veil portion is fine. Usually it's a little headdressy skeleton cap thing that I'm not a huge fan of. But yeah, big fan of veils. So that I'm very happy with. It's so unfortunate that they went away from veils. I think that's adorable. But yeah, the cap, the emblem is still there. It does sit back on your head. I see a lot of people put them up here, but when you look at photographs, they really are on the back of the head. Even the caps themselves. But yeah, that is basically the Hospital and Recreation Corp gray lady dress. So next time we're going to do production core. I already have it cut out. All I have to do is sew it up. It would be very poetic to start with this one as far as the series go with making all the core outfits. Let's start where I started 10, 12 years ago. Just made sense to me, so that's where we started. But now I gotta go buy more patches. So that'll be fun. So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Click the little bell notification so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. And as always, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here in the next video.